We left off page 46 in RaMCHaL. Mina Anushi speak about the human being, that he's comprised of a neshama and a physicality. Each one represents desire, causes him to gravitate towards things which are physical, and the neshama is the intellect, the pure intellect, which causes the person to have an appreciation for spirituality and to be fully rational. And there's a struggle between the physical and the spiritual. And whichever one has the upper hand, then if the soul has the upper hand, then it elevates the physicality of the person, elevates the world. And if the body, the material, the physicality, actually takes control of the person, then the person is diminished and the world is diminished. Omnam, we're on Gimel, page 46. Goza Tuvo Yisbarach Shmo. God's goodness decreed. Again, he says it's goodness, because why did Hashem create existence? Because Hashem is good, and good does good, and therefore the whole situation that man should have the power of choice is in the best interest of man, although the choice man could make is contrary to the will of God. There's a limitation to man's time that he's able to achieve this level of perfection. Meaning, it's not forever. 70 years. 80 years. When he completes this time of initiative, Yasik Shleimuso, he will achieve his perfection, and it will be placed in a situation of his pleasure for all eternity. Therefore, God set two periods of time. One is the time of service, and the other is the period which one is a beneficiary of his choices. However, the good is overwhelmingly greater than anything in terms of the time which person is a beneficiary of reward. It's endless. It's eternity. The time of service has a very set period of time, which is appropriate for the person. Let's say a person is only meant to live 50 years, not more. That means the appropriate amount of time that he needs to achieve perfection, shleimus, is 50 years. But if he achieves what he's supposed to know is 50 years, the benefit is forever, is eternity. But the time of receiving the reward, it's unlimited. For all eternity, he basks in the pleasure of this perfection which he acquired through this very limited period of what? Of achievement. It's like not to be believed. You know? You should be careful regarding even a seemingly light mitzvah as a severe mitzvah. You don't know the extent of the reward of mitzvahs. Could you imagine? I mean, literally, a person makes a movement and he moves mountains, which is an understatement, which you're able to generate with the slightest degree of nothing. A famous story with the Vilna Gaon, before he passed away, he was crying. He says, Talmidim say, "Why you cry?" He says, in this world, for a few kopecks, you're able to buy a four-cornered garment filled with tzitzis. Once you pass on, it closes, it ends. You know what tzitzis? Tzitzis is shokol keneged kol mitzvahs. It's the equivalent of taryag mitzvahs. One word of Torah, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. So how long does it take to say one word of Torah? The Gemara says in Sanhedrin that a child who lives long enough to be able to answer Amen, that's it. Nothing, no more than Amen. He has a share in the world to come. The child's not even at a level that he has choice. He's still a minor. He has a share in the world to come. And that's forever. 3-letter word, Omen, Kel Melech Nemon. That's what it is. So the Zman Avoda is Mechukok. It's very limited. But reward is Netzach Netzachim. That slight degree of initiative, it generates infinite result. Ulam, because of the different types of periods of time that a person exists in the physical sense and after he passes on in the spiritual sense, his whole situation has to have change and all the experiences. The person has to be challenged. We talk about Nisayon. The person has choice. You have to be challenged. And we speak about the struggle. So if the struggle is what determines, is the time initiative, so whatever is needed to create the setting for that struggle has to be in place. So that means in the world, Hashem, when He created the physical world, whatever is needed to be able to achieve shleimus, that perfection, through the Bechira, has to be in place, because that's the playing field. Okay? Has to be one type of setting. Everything has to be in place which is needed to provide for that initiative. You know, you tell a person, I want you to do $1 million deal. And the man doesn't have 2 coins, 2 nickels to rub together. You can't do it. And you have to have the deal to do. I mean, everything has to be in place. Now the question is, you take the initiative, you have the mean, you have the capital, you have the... Now, how do you do exactly, how do you structure the acquisition? But if anything's missing, you can't do it. Whatever is needed to address every aspect of one's achieving perfection through initiative, it's in place. Pirish, meaning, we're forced to have, it should be present, the battle, which we meant between the intellect and the physicality of the person. And there's nothing that would inhibit the physicality. It shouldn't have sufficient amount of what? Of influence. According to the degree that it's meant to create this setting of struggle between the intellect and the physicality. And also that the seichel should be able to take control, meaning you're in the balance. Now the question is, in the struggle, each one has the ability to overcome the other. Fiashir haroilo. Take a look at Seforno. When Yaakov was in battle with the angel, he says, if Yaakov would have slackened for a moment, the angel could have killed Yaakov. So he says that, the Seforno says that his mind was attached to, not focused, was attached to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every moment, and there wasn't a lapse for a moment of what? Of that attachment. Because if he would have had any degree of distraction, he would have killed him. The angel would have killed Yaakov. Chas v'sholom. But the factually, the person has that ability. You know, it's interesting. You know, the Gemara says in Eruvin that there was an argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. They argued this point. It's one of the only philosophical arguments in Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, and Shas. Noach lo adam shenivra, or Noach lo adam shelo nivra. Was the best man to be created or not to be created? They debated this issue for 2.5 years. After debating for 2.5 years, there was a consensus. Noach lo adam shelo nivra. Was the best man for the man not to be created. So I asked the question. It seemed like chas v'sholom. It's heresy. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, evidently it's Noach lo shenivra. Right? So how could you even consider Noach lo shelo nivra? Would have been best for man not to be created. Not possible. So what I said was, before the Chet of Adam Arishon, No question. No chlodum shenivro. Because good and evil was so discernible, man was not yet addicted to evil. Evil was not within the person, it was outside of the person. Now you choose. Black, white. No chlodum shenivro. But once Adam ingested the pre of the Eitz Hadas, which is tov v'ra, so now evil became intermingled in the person. Now things are not as clear. Man has lost his clarity. As a result of that, most people fail. You look at the world. Most people fail. So most people fail in the setting which man has created. We created it. Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't create it. That setting was created due to man's choice. He made the wrong choice. He failed. Adam Rishon. Originally, man was supposed to be eternal. Hashem says, the day that you eat of that tree, of that fruit, most tomus, you become a subject of death. You become a limited being. Limitation means, what does limitation means? That means there's limit. You don't see clearly. Because there's covering. Things are concealed. Things become, there's the gray. Not simple. That's the question. So, and most people actually statistically fail. Most people don't succeed, spiritually speaking. So therefore you'd say, so the consensus was, after 2.5 years of debating it, no chlod adam shlo nivro. But what does that mean? That's all, but what does the Gemara say? But achot shav shen nivro, yemashvish b'masav yifashv b'masav. Now understanding your handicap, there's a way to deal with it. You have to be discerning. Before you make a move, you have to evaluate the action. Before anything comes out of your mouth, before you think, before you look. Every function of your being has to be analyzed, evaluated, and only then you act. If you approach life with that approach, of course it's no chlusha nivra. You're going to make the right choice. But what about a person, he reflexively functions? Then you've lost. It's like going down a slippery slope with your eyes closed, and you don't know if you're going down or you're going up. What's the end result? You're totally destroyed. So that, it's no chlo b'shlo nivra. But before, there was no such thing as your eyes being closed. You had absolute clarity. And it was not within the person, it was outside the person. You know, the Chaim writes that, you know, the machlokas, Reb Shimon Yochai and Rabbi Shmuel, how should one live his life? So Reb Shimon Yochai says a person has to dedicate his life only to Torah mitzvahs. What about one's material needs? One's chores will be done, bidding will be done through the Goyim. The Goyim will do it. If they're also Ritzono Shel Moko. The second paragraph of the Shema, Oim Shemot Tishma Mitzvosai, V'nosati V'osapti D'gonecho, you bring in your own grain, that's Eino Mosim Ritzono Shel Moko. The person's not fully doing the will of God. Therefore you do your own bidding. Not only do your own bidding, you do their bidding also. So, the Gemara says, Harbe Osu Reb Shimon Yochai, V'lo Osu B'yodam. Many tried to follow the prescription of Reb Shimon Yochai, they didn't succeed. So Reb Chaim says many. The majority did, but there were minority who did succeed. Nobody's saying it's easy. That you have to have a level of cognizance every moment that you don't make a move or an action unless you first make that evaluation. It's not easy. But it's within man's ability to make the right choice always. To make it. A person choose to turn a blind eye or want to have it easier, then, you know, it's like driving with your eyes closed. Chas v'sholom. It's inevitable. You're going to be in an accident. It's unavoidable. It's interesting. Just thinking while we're speaking, there's a famous expression based on a posuk, Ragli Chasid of Yishmar. Hashem watches over the feet of his Chasidim. So Rabbeinu Bach writes, he explains it, he says, a person who's a runner, as careful as you are, it's inevitable you're going to have a sports injury. Because the terrain is not always straight. Always. So you're going to twist your ankle, something's going to go right. But if a person's a chosid, Ragli Chasidim Yishmar, Hashem watches the Ragli Chasidim. That even though naturally a person should be, maybe you cannot be careful enough. You can't be careful enough. So if that's the case, no chlodim shelo nivra. No. if you make enough right choices, the areas that is beyond your ability, Hashem will make sure you don't fail. Hashem will provide you with that clarity. So why didn't you have the clarity? Because you failed. The Chaim writes that the reason why Nodam and Avihu made the mistake they made, whatever the chet was, they drank, or they were Moraloch B'nei Rabban, whatever the chet was, I mean, why did they have sufficient clarity? Hashem should have provided clarity for them. Right? Ragli Chasid of Yishmor. That's his question. So he explains that because Aaron had participated in the Chet Egel, he had to lose 2 sons. So Hashem, so in whose merit would have they had clarity? In the merit of their father, Aaron. Aaron was Shokol Kereged Moshe. But because he had to have this level of pain, he had to lose 2 sons. Therefore, his children were not provided with that level of clarity. So they made the choice based on their choice, based on their own level. But if Aaron wouldn't have been deserving of that pain, Hashem would have provided the clarity due to the schus of Aaron to his children. They shouldn't make the mistake. So the areas which human, it's impossible not to make a mistake, almost. But if you would have merited, Hashem would have provided with your clarity. So why didn't you have clarity? Because you could have been a chassid, you weren't a chassid. Being a chassid, not being a chassid, that's within your choice. So everything ultimately is within your choice. Even providing an amenity which is beyond your ability. That's what you see. What is known? Chaim, he would do tshuva before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur, on 45 minutes of Bittul Torah throughout the year. Could you imagine? He kept the record. As I always say, halavai, our learning should be his Bittul Torah. Chaim. He felt that maybe the moment wasn't invested as it should have been invested. Maybe he could have been studying with more focus, less focus, whatever. You know what it means in a year? To keep it first with you, so discerning and cognizant every moment how you invest the moment. Humanly, I mean, it's something which to us it's impossible. How much time does a person waste? Right? What does it mean to waste 5 minutes? It means nothing. Say Baruch Hashem, I learned 59 minutes of every hour. But if the 24 hours a day, that means you waste 24 minutes a day. Multiplied by a year, so that's so many hours a year. Weeks, months, in a lifetime. There's no such thing. Every minute was 60 minutes, fully invested in 60 minutes. It's a level of stamina and focus and drive which is almost not possible. It's interesting that we say this when you make a siyum on the Masechta. We speak about Haim Rotzim, Anu Rotzim. We run and they run. We toil and they toil. Anu Amelim, Haim Amelim. Right? So, obviously, what do we have to talk about them? They run, we run. Haim Rotzim, Leber Shachas. Anu Rotzim, L'chayin L'mabor. Anu Amelim, L'kabel Schai, Haim Amelim, L'kabel Schai. What do we have to talk about? Let's talk about ourselves. Now, it's interesting. If factually a person, when he sins with a level of gusto and level of focus, undistracted, fully immersed, that means, what does that mean? That a person has the ability to be fully focused and immersed, undistracted when you sin. So you have that ability. So if you have that ability, why can't you invest it in Kedusha, in Mitzvah? So therefore we have to contrast. The same drive, the same immersion that they have, we immerse it in Kedusha. We have Olam Haba, they have Ber Shachas. We're Amelim, we toil, the same degree of toil. But that's the litmus test. That's the litmus test. Are you as committed to the mitzvah as you committed to earn a living? Right? Person's in the meeting, he's going to close the deal of a lifetime. He's so focused every moment. He's cognizant of every detail when you study a Blat Gemara. Right? Are you focused on every detail, every word Rashi says? Fully focused. Why did he say this word and not that word? Evidently not. Why not? But if you're invited to the inauguration of the President of the United States, did you hear that word? And you have analysts who evaluate every word that he said. He repeated this word 6 times. Right? And Lahavdil Elef Azos, when you learn the Gemara, how many times did Rashi repeat that word? Famous story with the Vilna Gaon. Somebody had claimed, he studied Luzzatto Sukkah, so he comes to the Vilna Gaon to be examined on the Masechta. So the Vilna Gaon says, you sure you studied this officially? He says, definitely. He says, okay. How many times is the Bai's name mentioned in the Masechta? That's the question. Couldn't answer him. Right? Couldn't answer him. Right? The Vilna Gaon could tell you how many vavs there's in the Masechta. That was his level. Lahavdil, but the analyst after the president speaks or gives his whatever it is, his union address, every word, every whatever, every concept, every thought, it's all evaluated. Why? Because that's what their job is. Lahavdil, when you learn a sugya, the Gemara, do you analyze it to such a degree? It doesn't make a difference. It's not important. It's not important. We're talking about Chaylim Abba. We're saying the Zman Avod is chokuk. It's limited. The time of reward is Netzach Netzochim. And the degree of Netzach Netzochim, the quality of Netzach Netzochim is determined qualitatively at what level you invest in the Zman chokuk, in the limited amount of time. It goes hand in hand. The Rambam writes in the Tshuva that those who say that a person is born with a certain predilection for evil, and therefore he has no choice to be a Rasha, but to be a tzaddik, he says, they're a bunch of fools. It's foolishness. Every human being is put in the position. We're not saying a person doesn't have a greater leaning towards the negative than to the positive. But after everything's said and done, you have the ability to rein in, to do the right thing. Proof of the pudding is, Chazal tell us that, Rivka, when she was pregnant, it says, there was agitation in her innards. She didn't realize she had twins. When she passed, as Rashi cites Chazal, before a temple of idolatry, there was a bolt. The Esav tried to escape the womb. When she would pass by Yeshivas Shem Ve'ever, Yaakov would bolt go out. This is even before. This is before they were born. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin that the Yetzer Hara only comes to the child after birth. This is pre-birth. So you see, it's a different thing. There's a certain inclination. That's the essence. The Yetzer Hara, that revs it up to another level. The Yetzer Hara. You're inclined. Like the Rambam writes in Hilchos Deos, but he speaks about the characteristics of people. Certain people naturally, when it comes to physical desire, like eating, they have an insatiable desire to eat. Other people, they don't even address the most basic needs to live. And they have to force themselves to eat. To that degree. They're different temperaments, different predilections of people. That's not Yetzer Hara. That's the essence of the person, just the makeup of a person. Now we talk about Yetzer Hara within that context. So everybody has that incline, but despite whatever you have, you're always in the position that you can deal with that situation, to overcome it, overpower it, and take control. Nothing will interfere with the intellect to take control, to do what it's supposed to do, according to the degree that's meant to. Meaning, you could do mitzvahs from today forever. You're always going to be in a position of bechira. You'd say, if you do a mitzvah, and the mitzvah spiritualizes the person becomes so spiritualized, you no longer have a Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara has been totally destroyed. Right? No such thing. Now, let's talk. Because seemingly it's difficult. There's nothing will allow the physicality of the person to become so empowered and overwhelmingly in control that the person no longer has bechira. Although it seems it would have been better for the human being that he should be in a position that the physicality has no bearing on him. But according to the true intent of Hashem, and what's best for man's best interest, man has to be the maker of his own perfection, as we discussed earlier. It should not be attributed to anything but himself. But at the time of receiving reward, you no longer have choice. There, the Kedusha overwhelms and negates everything. The physicality becomes totally spiritualized. Let's stop for a moment. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin that David HaMelech came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and said, the Avos HaKadoshim are referred to Elokei Avram, Elokei Yaakov. Why it should say Elokei David? So David says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to David, it's not in your best interest. Why? Because the reason why I'm referred to as Elokei, every one of the Avos HaKadoshim, because they were tested and they withstood the test. So he says, I want to be tested. Wait, I want to be tested. That's what he says. It's not your best interest. I want to be. So it's a separate discussion. Why did he ask? And if he's not called Elokei David, right? Okay, has to be explained. But so it's Gemara says until at that point, David had no Yetzer Hara. He destroyed his Yetzer Hara. He had no inkling or no interest in anything which was contrary to Kedusha. David was so spiritualized, he says his feet, it was like magnetically he'd be drawn to Kedusha. His feet were drawn to the Beis Medrash. That was David HaMelech. He yearned every moment, he was in pain that he couldn't be fully connected to Hashem. That was David HaMelech. So, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Yetzer Hara for him. And that was the story of Bathsheba. That was the temptation. And he failed. He failed. And he did not merit to be Elokei David. But you see, he brought about a situation where his actions did not allow his physicality to overcome him. Right? So you see, he had no longer had Bechira. So you see, the effect of the right choice totally negated the Chomer, the physicality. And he says, no, a person will never be put in a position that as much as he chooses positively, that he should not be subject to the Chomer. Explicitly, he had to be subject to the Chomer. So how do you reconcile it with what the RaMCHaL was saying? The Gemara. So I was thinking, that thought that came to his mind, it may have been L'Shem Shemayim. But what drew him that Hashem should reinvent his Yetzer Hara? Whatever it was, that, it doesn't mean to say there may not be moments. The person says, I've created the evil inclination. I created specific for an antidote, the Torah, which is the antidote. And the Gemara says that when you study Torah, you're protected from the Yetzer Hara. So you have no Bechira. You're still subject to choice the moment you stop learning. If you're not learning sufficiently, qualitatively. But there may be moments you're not. But you're not detached. There's always the so-called the comeback. You can always come back to that point. Right? Even the Avos HaKadoshim, what were they called? Elokei. Only after they passed away. Except for Yitzchak. Why? Because Atam Matzma Ad Yom Moshe. Until the last moment of your existence, you cannot trust yourself. A person may make that wrong choice. To become a heretic. Hashem is not going to allow his name to be associated with a person who could actually change and become something which is a Chil Hashem, which is a disgrace. So, even the Avos HaKadoshim, as much as they were the Merkava, when they were alive, they were the Merkava. They were the location, they were the equivalent of the Kodesh Kadoshim, of the Holy of Holies. The Shekhinah was where they were. Even though the Shekhinah is where they are, Hashem says, I will not allow you to be called Elokei Avram. I will not associate my name with you. Because that could change in a moment. So what do you say? That means you never know. The Yetzer Hara is always lurking there. Ki hinei, komashi yachome sholif osas man. as long as the physicality has dominance, we're talking about after, we're talking about Tchis HaMesim. What does physicality represent? Material. Could you imagine? The halacha is a person has to go to the mikveh to relieve himself of tumah. If he has a chatzitza on his body, an adhesion, and the water is not able to touch his body, it's not a valid immersion. It's not valid. Because the water has to touch every bit of your body. If the physicality of the body would not be spiritualized, fully spiritualized, we're talking about at the time of Tchis HaMesim, you're supposed to bask in the rays of Hashem. So it comes out, you have something there which and it's an entombment. It doesn't allow it to penetrate. So then it's appropriate that the spiritualization of the mitzvah should convert the physicality to become an object of spirituality. Otherwise, the person cannot be mizdabik b'bori yisbarach shmo. He can't attach himself. He can't cleave. Al kain hine roi, hine shel tishlo rozel ha'neshama. Therefore, at that time, what's the dominant and only of influence? Only the neshama. V'achomer yenimshach achreo legamri. And the physicality is drawn after it totally. It's totally negated. It doesn't interfere whatsoever. Why doesn't it interfere? Because it's spiritual. And Moshe Rabbeinu, you see, it was Koran Arponov. And that wasn't the ultimate. In his physical life, his body was so spiritualized that the neshama actually radiated through his physicality. It's only because his physicality was not an entombment. You know, RaMCHaL writes in the Das Tfunos that it's cited as far where's a person's neshama. It hovers over a person's head. It's not within the body. But at one time, Adam Rishon, when he was created before the Chet, it was in his body. Moshe Rabbeinu is the only other person that was in his body. Understand? If our bodies are so putrefied with physicality, it represents an earthiness. The body doesn't have the capacity to contain the neshama. So Adam, before the Kodem HaChet, he was an entity. He radiated, that the Malachim had confused his radiance with the radiance of Hashem. They started to say Shira to him. Therefore, it's an appropriate location for the neshama to be. He still had Bechira. He had choice. Does he eat from the Eitz Hadas? Doesn't eat of the Eitz Hadas. Once he ate, he was diminished. It's no longer appropriate. The neshama should be in what? Should be in that body. It hovers. Moshe Rabbeinu initially didn't, but due to his own level of spiritualization, which was so overwhelming, it was Koran Arponov. He radiated. That body is an appropriate location for the neshama to be within that body. Therefore, but anybody other than Moshe Rabbeinu, it hovers over one's head. The Gemara says in Bava Metzia that Shufra the Yaakov means Shufra the Odom Harishon. That the beauty of Yaakov was a semblance of the beauty of Odom Harishon. What does that mean? Odom Harishon radiated. Yaakov Vino radiated Kedusha. There was a radiance. Like Moshe Rabbeinu radiated, there was radiance. And his radiance was main Shufra the Odom. It had a semblance of the beauty. The beauty we're talking about, not just physical beauty. The radiance. There was an aura of Odom Rishon. And Shufra, the Rabbi Yochanan was beautiful. Was main Shufra the Yaakov. Was a semblance of the beauty of Yaakov. Okay? Mar Brachas tells a story that Rabbi Yochanan went to pay a sick visit to one of his colleagues. Rabbi Luzzatto wasn't well. He walks into his house where he was lying, his room. The room was darkened. And Rabbi Yochanan, he radiated. So it says he rolled up his sleeve and the room was illuminated. And he's able to see Rabbi Luzzatto. He's lying in bed and he's sobbing. He's crying. He says, why are you crying? He says, is it because you didn't study sufficient Torah? That's why you're crying? As much as you learn, as much little as you learn, as long as you did your best, there's no difference, more or less. You can't do more than your best. You did your best, so there's no reason to sob. Is it because you weren't Zochel Shtei Shulchanos, that you didn't merit both tables, the table of Kedusha and the table of material? Local Zochel Shtei Shulchanos. Not every merits two tables. There's no reason to cry. So why are you crying? He says, I'm crying because Hai Shufra de Boli Ba'afra. Because eventually, when you die, you're going to decompose in the earth. That's why I'm crying. The earth. That's what he says to Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan is that, Rabbi Yochanan breaks down crying. Because that's worthwhile to cry. And he was beautiful. He had a beauty. Look, everybody eventually dies. When a person dies, they decompose in the earth. I mean, what is he crying about? He's crying about the inevitable. What did he say that it touched him, that he understood why it's worthwhile to cry? Okay? The Kuzari writes that we cannot even fathom what an Amoritz was who saw a Navi. A Navi was a person who Hashem communicated with him. We cannot fathom the dimension of an Amoritz, whatever an Amoritz was, an ignorant person who saw a prophet. Understand? Could we fathom what Rabbi Yochanan looked like? Could we fathom what Yaakov looked like? We have nothing. We have no frame of reference. Now, if you wanted to know, now Yaakov was Bechir Shabavos. He was the most special of the patriarchs. Fathered the Shiftei Kol, the 12 Shvatim. If you wanted to know who Yaakov was, to have an inkling of who he was, you looked at Rabbi Yochanan. You know what it means to know what Rabbi Yochanan lived 2,000 years after Yaakov. You know what it means to have an understanding? If you understand what Yaakov was, you understand what standard is. Who understands what standard is? Everything is mediocrity compared to that. Endless times over mediocrity, even less than mediocrity. So by understanding what is, then you understand what's not. So as long as Rabbi Yochanan was alive, you had relevance to have what we call hasoga. You have a grasp of what it's supposed to be. What happens when Rabbi Yochanan dies? It's over. It's era, not only one era closes, many eras, chapters close. You're not connected to the past any longer. You know what it means to, if you would know what Sinai was, what the experience was. I mean, read about it. But to visually see it and to be touched by it, it's not possible. Therefore, that's the Tzkat Noadoros. That's the diminishment of the generations. So that's where Rabbi Yochanan cried. It's not because he's so beautiful. When he passes on, that beauty decomposes in the ground. It's the end of an era. That's the end. Torah now falls to another level. It's no longer that dimension of Torah. I would say, Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, he was known as the Kovner Rov. He authored many Sforim. And he was the Posek Gadol. He was the decider of the generation. Today people publish Sforim. People, whatever it is, 200-page Sefer, 300-page Sefer. Response to this, whatever it is. If you open any, he only lived, he passed away in the late 1800s. If you open one of his Sforim and just read a half a page of just what he begins talking, it's the equivalent of 400 pages in another Sefer. Just what he passes on. He just has a few sentences. He already touched upon maybe 20 sources. Response sources, Bavli, Yerushalmi, Tosefta, everything. Shulchan Aruch, Tur, Beis Yosef, Bach. I mean, it's unbelievable. You have Chalisha Zadas. You know, Chalisha Zadas. You feel. You know. So what are we? As much as you think you are, you're nothing. So by seeing what greatness is, then you understand what you're not, and therefore you strive for greatness. But if you think you're on top of the mountain, where you haven't even begun ascending the mountain, so you don't move where you were at. Okay? There's something else you must know. The original human being, Adam Rishon, when he was created, we're not the same being as he was. I mean, he had 2 arms, 2 legs, he had a head, he had a heart. We're not talking about the physical makeup, the infrastructure. There's a tremendous difference. He says transformation. The sin of Adam Rishon. I'll give you an example. You have a person when he was young, a specimen of health. Tall, strong, vibrant, fierce. And the person lives till 120. Naturally, the person shrivels up. He's like a shriveled prune. He's like a shriveled prune. There's no semblance of comparison between what he was and what's now. You can't even recognize it as if it's the same person. Adam before the Chet and after the Chet, that's an understatement. It's a different bria. It's a different creation. There's a Tosis in Megillah says, the Gemara speaks about the most beautiful woman who existed. And so Tosis says, what about Chava? Chava, who was the handiwork of God. Yitzir Kappa Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what's she mentioned? So he says, Tosis, that Chava, because she was Yitzir Kappa Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, she was Hashem's handiwork, comparing a person who was born of human birth to her, it's like comparing an ape to a human being. So it's not even within the realm of comparison. That was the beauty of Chava. Right? Adam pre-Chet, after Chet, it's like comparing an ape to a human being. Relatively speaking, in terms of the dimension of what Kedusha is. It was a different being. We're talking about an eternal being and a limited being. That's what the rod did to him. There was a change of what man was meant to be and what the world was meant to be. The details of this transformation and diminishment and all the ramifications and outgrowths are many. He says later we'll speak about this. The discussion regarding the human species and the discernment in terms of what affects him, fooling. There are multiples of what's there to discuss. There's what to speak about him and what affects him and what pertains to him before the sin, in terms of what he was and what he could have accomplished, what his potential was, and the ramifications. And there's what to speak about and what pertains to him in his essence and his evaluation after the Chet. As he will explain. Hine Adam Rishon, Basic Tziroso. Adam Rishon at the time of his formation. See, well, he doesn't say at the time of his creation. What's formation? There was a neshama and there was a physicality. He formed them, he combined them together. He infused one into the other. That's Yitzira. That's not Bria. Bria means something did not exist and now it exists. That's Bria. This is formation. He formed man. It says V'yitzir es Odom. Yud is the 2 Yuds. That's Yitzir Tov Yitzirah. He was in the same setting as we discussed now. What does that mean? Nainu shuoyer murkav. He was a composite. Mit shnei achalokim v'hofchim shamarnu, which two entities which were the antithesis of one another. The neshama was one entity, and the physicality was another entity. The high chaim on neshama v'aguf. And what's mentioned, name it Orach HaKodesh, he says, fire and water cannot coexist. So he says, it's easier to combine fire and water than to infuse a neshama into the body. We're talking about, fire is a physical entity, water is a physical entity. Okay? During the Borod, they coexisted. Right? Lasos Rotzen Hashem. The neshama, it's not they're both physical. It's a different realm of existence. One's spiritual, one's physical. Without neshama, the body can't live. Without the neshama, without the body, the neshama can't function within the context it's supposed to. So how do you somehow combine the two? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed they should get together. That was Hashem. But it's more difficult to combine that than combining fire and water. Those are the words of RaMCHaL. And in terms of the essence of what it is, it's a representation of good and evil. Good is neshama. Evil has to do with the body. You can't sin without a body. And the person's in the balance now. What direction do you go? He could attach himself whichever he wants. So what would have been the appropriate choice? To choose what's best, choose the good. The yagbir nishmoso al gufo, and the neshama should overpower his physicality, his body. The sichlo al chomro, and his intellect over his material. If he would have done that initially, he would have achieved perfection. And he would have settled in a perfect state for eternity at that moment onward. Chaim brings a Zohar that is a question, what was the Eitz Hadas? So according to one opinion, it was the grape. The grape was the Eitz Hadas. So Zohar says that if Adam Rishon would have been only been the soil, if he would have succeeded, he would have taken that same grape, squeezed it, and he would have said Kiddush on the wine Friday night. So what was originally forbidden, that would have been the extract to what? To Zochas Yom Shabbos L'Karcho. To acknowledge Hashem as the creator. But unfortunately, because he did not, everything went south, minimally south. Tzor Sheteda, Shapi Shenono Magishim and the Neshama Baguf Puba Cheres. I mean, what effect? What do we sense? We know we have neshama. How do we know we have neshama? Well, we sense it. We know a person doesn't have neshama, he's not alive. So that you're alive, that you're functioning, evidently you have a neshama. But do we feel our spirituality? Do we feel we're a spiritual being because we have a neshama? We're alive and we have intellect. Right? The neshama has the ability, the empowerment to purify the essence of the physicality of the body, to advance it one level after another, to spiritualize it, and to cause a metamorphosis, to change it into a different entity. If Adam wouldn't have sinned, that's what would have happened. That the body would have accompanied the neshama in that perfect setting, in pleasure, in a state of perfect state. The RaMCHaL writes later that the Ra of the Eitz Hadas, there's certain things that the body could absorb. naturally. There's certain entities, if the body takes them in, the body cannot process it. It will forever float in the body, whatever, like foreign substances. And before the Chet of Adam Rishon, man was not perfect. But there was no evil in that imperfection. The imperfection was he didn't achieve perfection yet. So let's say he's 99.9, he just has to get to 100%. How do you get to the 100%? By withstanding the test of eating Eitz Hadas. Then you hit 100. Once you hit 100, shleimus. What about if you ingest Ra? That Ra can never be extracted from your body. Once it's infused, the only way it could be filtered out, you have to die. The person has to decompose. And at the time of Tchias HaMesim, what's going to be resurrected? Only the pure matter. That evil remains in the ground. So therefore, it's not only, so you can't, as much as you want to be perfect, you're dragging this Ra with you. But you can't be perfect if you have Ra. Therefore, the person has to die. But before the Chet, there was no Ra. There was no evil in the person. So what was lacking? Perfection. You have the means to achieve perfection. Just be Omid bin Nisoyin. Withstand the test, the temptation. Don't eat of the Eitz Hadas. And as a result of that, what would have been the end result? The physicality would have achieved, become a spiritual entity. And that's the concept of Tchias HaMesim. Why is ultimately you have to have resurrection? Because ultimately the body is a partner with the neshama in every choice, positive choice. So therefore it will be resurrected, and the neshama, all the good that the person will spiritualize the body, and it will be as it was meant to be if Adam wouldn't have eaten them, the Eitz Hadas. That's what it would have been. V'omnom, l'dav zeh ha'odam rishon agnialo agilo ilo lochota. He would have achieved that if he wouldn't have sinned. Shoyis nishmosam zacheches zgufo zichuch hachazichuch. His neshama would have purified his body one level of perfection after another. To the point it would have purified it to the degree that it had to be purified, that it was worthy to what? To be set in that eternal pleasure, which to be exposed to that level of what? Of Shechina, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.